The moment the courtroom burst into laughter, a 7-year-old black boy realized something terrifying. They weren't laughing at a joke. They were laughing at him, at his skin, at his voice, at the idea that a child like him could matter in a place built to silence people like his mother. Isaiah stood there, heart pounding, hands shaking, watching his mom being judged guilty before the sentence was even spoken. He didn't understand legal language, evidence, or procedure, but he understood fear. He understood injustice. And in that moment, he did the only thing his heart knew how to do. He spoke up, knowing it might destroy him. What no one in that room expected was that his words would crack something far deeper than a verdict, something buried for 15 years, something powerful, something dangerous. Stay until the end, because what happens next will force an entire courtroom, and maybe you, to confront a truth no one was ready to face. The courtroom was already decided before anyone spoke. That was the feeling in the air inside Franklin County Courthouse that morning. Heavy, final. Like the verdict had been written long before the doors opened. People filled the benches shoulder to shoulder, whispering, staring, waiting for something to break the monotony of another poor defendant standing alone against the system. At the defense table sat Monica Reed, a black woman in her early 30s, hands folded tightly in her lap. She wore a plain gray sweater, faded at the cuffs, the kind of clothing that never draws attention, but somehow always invites judgment. Her shoulders were stiff, not because she was guilty, but because she had learned what happens when a black woman looks too relaxed in a courtroom. Calm could be mistaken for indifference. Fear could be mistaken for guilt. Behind her, in the second row, sat her son. Isaiah Reed was 7 years old, too young to understand legal language, too young to understand why his mother had been taken away in handcuffs weeks earlier, but old enough to understand something much simpler and far more painful. People did not look at them the same way they looked at everyone else. Isaiah's feet barely touched the floor as he sat on the wooden bench, his legs swinging slowly, nervously. He clutched the straps of his worn backpack like it was the only solid thing in the room. His eyes moved from the lawyers to the jury, then up to the man presiding over all of them. Judge Harold Whitmore. A white man in his 60s, sharp-eyed, unsmiling, seated in a black wheelchair behind the elevated bench. His robe hung heavy around him, perfectly pressed, immaculate. 15 years earlier, a car accident had left him unable to walk. Since then, people said he had become even colder, more rigid, more unforgiving. Law over empathy, rules over stories, especially stories from people who looked like Monica Reed. The prosecutor finished summarizing the case with polished confidence. Surveillance footage, a shaky eyewitness identification, location data placing Monica near the scene. Each point landed like a nail in a coffin, even though none of them proved she had actually committed the armed robbery she was accused of. Monica's public defender stood, clearing his throat, doing his best with limited time and fewer resources. He mentioned inconsistencies, missing context, a lack of direct physical evidence, but the words felt thin in the air, like paper shields against iron. Isaiah watched the jury. Most avoided his eyes. He noticed how people leaned back when he shifted in his seat, how a woman in the front row tightened her purse strap when he stood briefly to stretch. He noticed how the bailiff watched him more closely than anyone else in the room. Isaiah didn't know the phrase racial bias. He just knew what it felt like. Judge Whitmore adjusted his glasses and glanced down at the case file. His voice when he spoke was calm and sharp, like a blade wrapped in velvet. "Before I proceed to sentencing," he said, "does anyone have anything relevant to add?" Silence. Monica closed her eyes for a moment. She had already said everything she could. She had told the truth from the beginning. She had explained she was home that night, taking care of her sick child. She had begged them to look deeper. No one listened. Isaiah's heart began to pound. Something inside him felt wrong, heavy, unfinished. Before he fully understood what he was doing, Isaiah stood up. The sound of his sneakers against the wooden floor echoed louder than it should have. A few heads turned. Someone sighed in irritation. Judge Whitmore looked up, his expression tightening. "Sit down, young man," he said, not unkindly, but not warmly either. Isaiah swallowed. His hands were shaking, but his voice came out clearer than he expected. "Please," and he said, I need to say something. A murmur spread across the courtroom, a black child speaking out of turn. The audacity of it seemed to irritate people more than the crime itself. Judge Whitmore hesitated. Curiosity flickered across his face, quickly masked by discipline. "You have 1 minute," he said. "Make it quick." Isaiah walked forward, each step feeling like he was crossing an ocean. He stopped a few feet from the bench and looked up at the judge. Really looked at him. "My mom didn't do it," Isaiah said. "She was with me. I was sick. She stayed home." The judge exhaled slowly. "That has already been addressed." Isaiah shook his head. "No, sir." Nobody listened. A few people chuckled quietly. Someone whispered, "He's just a kid." Isaiah's chest tightened. He felt the weight of all those eyes pressing down on him. Then he said the words that changed everything. "If you let my mom go," Isaiah said, his voice trembling but steady, "I'll make you walk again." For half a second, the courtroom froze. Then it broke. Laughter burst out, sharp and cruel. Some people covered their mouths. Others didn't bother. A man in the back shook his head, smiling like he was watching a joke he'd already heard. A black boy, poor, 7 years old, talking about miracles. Judge Whitmore's jaw tightened. "This is not a circus," he said coldly. "This court deals in facts, not fantasies." Isaiah didn't move. "I'm not joking," he said. "I promise." The laughter grew louder. Monica turned around, panic flooding her face. "Isaiah, baby, please," she whispered, tears spilling over. "Sit down." Judge Whitmore raised a hand. The room quieted. "Young man," he said, leaning forward slightly in his chair, "do you understand what you're doing right now?" Isaiah nodded. "Yes, sir." "And you understand that what you're suggesting is impossible?" Isaiah looked at the judge's legs, then back into his eyes. "No, sir," he said softly. "I think what's impossible is putting my mom in prison when she didn't do anything wrong." The courtroom went still. Something about the way he said it made the silence uncomfortable. Judge Whitmore stared at him for a long moment, not as a judge this time, as a man. Finally he spoke. "You may try," he said. 1 minute." Gasps rippled through the room. Isaiah dropped to his knees in front of the bench. His small hands rested gently on the judge's legs. They were warm, solid, real. He closed his eyes. Isaiah didn't say fancy words. He didn't know how. He just whispered. "Please," he said. "Please do the right thing." The room waited. Nothing happened. A cough broke the silence. Then another laugh. Judge Whitmore straightened, his face hardening. "Enough," he said. "This court will proceed." Isaiah opened his eyes. Hope drained from his face. Behind him, the sound of the gavel rose. And just like that, a child learned what it feels like to beg a system that never planned to listen. But something else was already stirring beneath the surface. Something no one in that room could explain yet. Before we continue, let me ask you something. This is where everything begins to change. Do you believe a system can be unjust even when it follows the law? Yes or no? The courtroom emptied quickly after the gavel fell. People stood, stretched, gathered their coats, already moving on with their lives. To them, it was just another case, another statistic, another black woman led away in handcuffs while the system congratulated itself for being efficient. But for Isaiah Reed, the world did not move forward. It collapsed. He stood frozen near the bench as the bailiff gently but firmly guided his mother toward the side door. Monica turned her head just once. Her eyes locked onto her son's. She tried to smile. It came out broken. "I'm okay, baby," she mouthed. Isaiah shook his head hard. His legs felt like they didn't belong to him anymore. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." The door closed behind her with a heavy metallic thud that echoed far longer than it should have. It sounded like a sentence, not just for Monica, but for him too. Across the room, Judge Harold Whitmore sat still, his face unreadable. He told himself what he had told himself for years. The law was followed. The evidence was sufficient. The system worked. And yet, for reasons he could not explain, his chest felt tight, uncomfortable, like something sharp had lodged itself between his ribs. He avoided looking at the small boy still standing in the middle of the room. The bailiff approached Isaiah. "Come on, kid," he said quietly. "Let's go." Isaiah didn't resist. He didn't cry. He just walked. Outside, the sky over Columbus was gray and low, the kind of sky that pressed down on you. Reporters stood by the courthouse steps, already chasing the next headline. No one asked Isaiah how he felt. No one asked why a 7-year-old black boy had just watched his mother disappear into a system that never seemed to give her the benefit of the doubt. At Hope Bridge Family Shelter, Isaiah sat on a thin mattress that night, hugging his backpack to his chest. The room smelled like disinfectant and old blankets. Somewhere down the hall, a baby cried. Somewhere else, someone coughed violently. Isaiah stared at the ceiling. He replayed the courtroom again and again in his head. The laughter, the judge's face, the moment hope slipped through his fingers. "I promised," he whispered into the dark. "I promised." Across the city, Judge Whitmore lay awake too. He stared at the ceiling of his large, quiet home, listening to the hum of silence. He had lived alone for years. After the accident, people stopped visiting. The world grew smaller. Order became his comfort. Control became his armor. But that night, his legs felt strange. At first, he told himself it was nothing. Phantom sensation, nerves misfiring. It happened sometimes. Then the warmth spread. A faint tingling crawled up his right calf. Whitmore's breath caught. He sat up slowly, heart pounding. His hands gripped the edges of the bed as if the movement itself might scare the sensation away. "No," he murmured. "That's not possible." The feeling grew stronger. Not pain, not numbness, presence. Tears sprang to his eyes before he could stop them. He hadn't felt anything there in 15 years. With trembling arms, he pushed himself upright in his wheelchair and placed his feet flat on the floor. Nothing. He exhaled sharply, almost laughing at himself. "Get a grip," he said aloud. "You're not a child." Then suddenly his toes curled. Whitmore froze. His breath stuttered. His heart slammed against his chest so hard it hurt. Slowly, carefully, like a man approaching a wild animal, he leaned forward and pressed his palms against the bed. With every ounce of strength he had, he pushed. For one impossible moment, his legs responded. They held. Judge Harold Whitmore stood, not fully straight, not steady, but upright. A choke sound escaped his throat. Tears blurred his vision as 15 years of certainty shattered in silence. Then his knees buckled. He collapsed back into the chair with a dull thud, gasping, his entire body shaking. The sensation vanished as quickly as it came. The room was quiet again. Whitmore stared at his legs, his mind racing. That night, he didn't sleep. By morning, the image of Isaiah kneeling in front of him would not leave his mind. The boy's voice, the way the courtroom had laughed, the way Whitmore himself had dismissed him without a second thought. By noon, Judge Whitmore was on his way to Hope Bridge Family Shelter. The staff stiffened when they saw him. A judge rarely showed up without trouble following. "I'm not here in my official capacity," Whitmore said quietly. "I need to speak to a child." Isaiah was sitting alone in the courtyard, tracing shapes in the dirt with a stick. He looked smaller than he had in the courtroom. Thinner, like something inside him had folded inward. Whitmore stopped a few feet away. "Isaiah," he said. The boy didn't look up. "I owe you an apology," Whitmore continued, "and a conversation." Isaiah finally raised his head. His eyes were tired, too tired for a 7-year-old. "You stood up," Isaiah said. Whitmore swallowed. "Yes, but you didn't stay standing." "No." Isaiah nodded slowly, like someone putting together a puzzle. "That's because you didn't fix it," he said. "You didn't fix what you broke." Whitmore frowned. "I followed the law." Isaiah stood. He was small, but the way he looked at the judge made Whitmore feel exposed. "You followed the paper," Isaiah said, "not the truth." "Assume." Whitmore felt the words land hard. "My mom was home with me," Isaiah continued. "I was sick. She made soup. She sang. I have proof." He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small flash drive, wrapped in blue tape. "My neighbor has a camera," Isaiah said. "My mom helped install it. It records everything." Whitmore stared at the drive. No one had mentioned this. Not the police, not the prosecution. "Why wasn't this submitted?" he asked quietly. "They said it didn't matter," Isaiah replied. "They said nobody would believe a black kid anyway." The words burned. Whitmore took the flash drive with shaking hands. In that moment, he understood something that terrified him. If Isaiah was telling the truth, then the system hadn't just failed. It had chosen not to look. By the time Whitmore returned to his chambers, his hands were steady, but his resolve was iron. He reviewed the footage. He cross-checked timelines. He found inconsistencies. Too many. Then he found something worse. Officer reports dated before evidence collection. Testimony that shifted subtly but consistently in one direction. Patterns he had ignored before because it was easier not to see them. By evening, Judge Harold Whitmore knew one thing for certain. If he reopened this case, his career would be over. And yet, for the first time in 15 years, his legs tingled again. This time he welcomed it, because justice, he realized, had been paralyzed long before he ever was. The courthouse had not seen a morning like this in years. By 8 a.m., the steps of Franklin County Courthouse were already crowded. Cameras lined the sidewalk. Reporters whispered into microphones. People who had never cared about court proceedings suddenly cared very much. Not because of Monica Reed alone, but because rumors had spread overnight. The judge who once sentenced a black single mother without hesitation was reopening the case himself, and he was doing it standing. Inside the courtroom, the air was different, tense, electric, like the room itself knew something was about to be undone. Monica Reed sat at the defense table again, her wrists free this time, though her hands still trembled. Prison had changed her, not physically, but in the way her shoulders stayed slightly hunched, as if expecting impact at any moment. She kept her eyes on the floor until she felt a small hand slip into hers. Isaiah squeezed gently. "I told you," he whispered. "We're still here." Across the room, murmurs rippled as Judge Harold Whitmore entered through the side door. No wheelchair, no assistance. He walked slowly, deliberately, with a cane he barely used. Every step measured and unmistakably real. Gasps spread across the benches. A few people stood without realizing it. Whitmore took his seat behind the bench and looked out over the courtroom. His voice when he spoke was steady, but something deeper had changed. "This court is in session," he said, "and today we are correcting a mistake." The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably. The defense attorney straightened in his chair. Everyone leaned forward. Whitmore laid out the facts calmly, methodically. The newly submitted video evidence. The medical records proving Isaiah had been sick that night. The timestamps that placed Monica Reed miles away from the crime scene. Then came the part no one expected. "The court has also reviewed internal police documentation," Whitmore continued, his eyes lifting to the gallery. "Documents that were not presented during the original trial." A murmur swept through the room. "These documents show inconsistencies in Officer Brian Kessler's reports," Whitmore said, "including statements recorded before evidence was officially collected." The color drained from the officer's face as he was escorted forward. The prosecutor tried to object. Whitmore raised a hand. "No," he said firmly. "We are past that." The truth unfolded quickly after that, too quickly for the lies to keep up. Body cam footage, witness intimidation, a pattern of targeting people who were easy to accuse and unlikely to be believed. Black, poor, alone. When the final piece of evidence was presented, the courtroom was silent. Whitmore took a breath. "In light of the evidence," he said, "this court finds that Monica Reed is innocent of all charges. Her conviction is hereby vacated, effective immediately." For a moment, no one moved. Then Isaiah let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob, and threw his arms around his mother. Monica collapsed against him, shaking, tears streaming down her face as years of fear poured out all at once. The courtroom erupted into applause. Not polite applause, real applause. The kind that comes from relief, from shame, from people realizing they had been complicit in silence. Whitmore watched them quietly, his grip tightening on the bench. Justice had been done, but something still lingered. Isaiah felt it too. He pulled back from his mother's embrace and looked up at the judge. "You kept your promise," Isaiah said softly. Whitmore swallowed. "So did you." Isaiah stepped forward. The courtroom fell silent again. "May I?" Isaiah asked. Whitmore nodded. Isaiah knelt, just as he had before. But this time, there was no laughter, no whispers, Only breathless attention. He placed his hands gently on the judge's knees and closed his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered, "for listening." The sensation came slowly this time. Not sudden, not overwhelming. A warmth that spread and stayed. Whitmore inhaled sharply. He stood. Not just for seconds. He stood and stayed standing. A stunned silence filled the room before breaking into sobs, cheers, hands covering mouths. Whitmore stepped forward, one step, then another, steady and real. Tears ran freely down his face. Isaiah looked up at him and smiled. "You fixed it," Isaiah said. Whitmore knelt down despite his aching legs and took the boy's face gently in his hands. "No," he said, his voice breaking. "You did." Outside, the sun broke through the clouds as Monica and Isaiah walked down the courthouse steps together. No guards, no cameras in their faces, just hands clasped tightly. Days later, Whitmore visited them at their small house on Maple Row. He came without his robe, without his title, just a man. "I spent years thinking justice was about control," he told Monica quietly. "Your son taught me it's about courage." Monica nodded. "We don't get many second chances." Whitmore looked at Isaiah. "That's why we protect them." Life didn't magically become easy after that. Monica still worked long hours. Isaiah still faced looks that lingered too long. But something fundamental had shifted. They were no longer invisible, and somewhere deep inside the system, a crack had formed. Small, fragile, but real. Justice had learned to walk again, and this time it wasn't alone. Now I want to hear from you. How did this story make you feel, honestly? Do you think Isaiah's courage changed more than just one verdict? Yes or no? If this story moved you, comment 111 below to let us know you stayed until the end. Tell us which country you're watching from. And if you believe stories like this matter, please share this video so more people can hear it. Your voice matters more than you think.